If you grew up in America during the 1960s, then you already know the kitchen wasn't just a room. It was a whole ecosystem of clunky gadgets, loud colors, and appliances that always sounded like they were fighting for their lives. This was long before smart fridges and air fryers and Alexa telling you your chicken is overcooked. Back then, your kitchen tools didn't talk. They growled, they clicked, they shook, and somehow they always got the job done. And speaking of nostalgia, if you haven't already watched our video, Top 10 Toys Every American Kid Had in the 1970s, do yourself a favor and check it out after this one. You'll laugh, you'll remember, and you'll probably say, wow, toys used to be way tougher than kids. But today, we're stepping even further back into the American kitchen of the 1960s, a place where everything was avocado green, every tool required elbow grease, and half the appliances could double as self-defense items. So grab a seat, maybe grab a cup of percolator coffee if you've still got one lying around, and let's revisit the 10 kitchen items every American home used before modern tech quietly kicked them out. Before Keurigs, espresso machines, and fancy coffee pods with names you can't pronounce, America had one hero keeping everyone awake in the 1960s. The percolator coffee maker. This thing didn't just brew coffee. It sounded like it was forging it in the depths of Mount Doom. You'd plug it in, and then the magic began. That bubbling, gurgling, slightly aggressive sound that filled every kitchen. It was like the coffee was fighting its way into existence. And the smell? The smell. It didn't just drift through the house. It announced itself like a proud relative showing up uninvited. But the best part was the anxiety. That tiny glass knob on top, you watched it like it was the finale of a suspense movie. If the coffee turned too light, disaster. Too dark, even worse. It was a whole relationship. And let's be honest, sometimes the percolator made a perfect pot, and sometimes it brewed something that tasted like burnt determination. But it didn't matter, because this was the soundtrack of every American morning. The click, the heat, the bubbling, and finally, the victory pour. The percolator wasn't just a coffee maker. It was a commitment. Yes, the hand-crank can opener. The device that turned every canned meal into a mini workout session. Before electric can openers and fancy smooth edge machines, Americans used this little metal torture device that required grip strength, patience, and sometimes prayer. The routine was always the same. You clamped it onto the can, wondered if you were holding it wrong, and then cranked it like you were starting a tiny, angry lawnmower. And of course, it never opened smoothly. No. It always created that dangerous, jagged lid that turned every can of peaches into a potential ER visit. Kids in the 60s learned one important life lesson early. Respect the can opener, or you'll regret it. And the sound it made, that metallic grr, 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 as you cranked around the edges, that was the kitchen's theme song for decades. Sure, today we press a button and it's done. But in the 60s, opening a can meant you earned your dinner. Before we get to the kitchen item that made noise loud enough to wake the neighbors, let's talk about the one that made your arms do all the work. Yes, the manual egg beater. This wasn't a tool, it was a commitment. If you grew up in the 1960s, you probably remember standing over a bowl, holding this chrome and red-handled gadget, and cranking it like you were powering a tiny helicopter. And it never spun smoothly. Oh no, it always had that moment where the gears stuck and you had to crank harder like you were trying to start a rusty lawnmower. Kids in the 60s didn't need gym memberships. They whipped eggs, whipped cream, whipped cake batter, basically whipped their biceps into shape. And the sound, that rrr, 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 as the beater spun, was the unofficial breakfast is coming alarm clock. Honestly, using a manual egg beater wasn't cooking, it was cardio. Today, we press one button and everything blends itself. But back then, if you wanted fluffy eggs, you had to earn them. Before we get to the kitchen item that defined 1960s style, and yes, it involves an unforgettable color, let's talk about the gadget that made every kitchen wall look like a command center. The rotary phone and wall clock combo. If you've never seen one, imagine this: a big, clunky rotary phone mounted right into the wall, and above it, a clock, a full-size clock, because apparently in the 60s, you needed to know the exact time while yelling, "I said, pick up the phone," from across the house. This setup was the heart of every kitchen. It was where moms took calls, wrote grocery lists, paid bills, and held the entire household together with one hand on the receiver. And if you were a kid, that phone cord was basically a toy. You twisted it, stretched it, tangled it, and somehow it always ended up in a knot shaped like a pretzel. The rotary dial itself? Oh, that thing required patience. Dialing a 9 felt like a life decision. Dialing a long-distance number? You better pack snacks. But here's the thing. This wall-mounted phone clock combo wasn't just a gadget. It was the social hub. It was where news traveled, gossip spread, and dinner burned because someone said, "Hang on, let me tell you one more thing." Sure, today we have smartphones, digital clocks, and a million apps for everything. But nothing will ever replace the drama, charm, and click, click, click of that spinning rotary dial. Let's be honest, there are trends we look back on fondly, and then there are trends we look back on and say, why did we do that? Enter the avocado green refrigerator. This thing wasn't just a fridge, it was a statement piece, a giant green block sitting proudly in the middle of the kitchen like it was auditioning for the role of most unusual vegetable. Back in the 60s, this color was everywhere. Fridges, stoves, mixers, Tupperware. If it belonged in the kitchen, someone thought, let's paint it green. But hey, that fridge was tough. Cold as Antarctica, heavy as a small car, and loud enough to announce every time the compressor kicked on. If yours didn't make that deep grong sound once an hour, you were worried something was wrong. And it held everything. Leftovers, milk bottles, mystery foil-wrapped shapes nobody ever identified, and popsicles that always froze into weird angles. Sure, today's fridges are sleek, stainless steel, LED lit, and probably can text you updates, but none of them have the chaotic charm of that green kitchen dinosaur. And speaking of things that caused both love and fear in the kitchen, wait until you remember the item that hissed, steamed, rattled, and made every family nervous during dinner prep. If you grew up in a 1960s kitchen, you didn't need horror movies. You had the pressure cooker. This thing didn't just cook food, it threatened the entire household while doing it. The metal pot would start with a gentle simmer, then a hiss, then a louder hiss, then that little pressure gauge on top would begin wobbling like it was trying to escape. Every kid knew the rule: do not touch the pot. And every mom hovered near it like a bomb technician, because if you released the pressure too fast, congratulations, you just redecorated the ceiling in beef stew. But let's be fair. When it worked, it could cook a whole roast in the time it took Dad to say, "I'll fix the lawnmower tomorrow." Today's Instant Pots are quiet, friendly, and don't make you sign an emotional waiver before using them. But those old school pressure cookers, they were rugged, reliable, and only slightly capable of blowing up the kitchen. And speaking of things that could survive anything, wait till you see the next item, the one found in every 60s neighborhood cookout, picnic, birthday party, and probably still hiding in your grandmother's cupboard right now. If there was one thing in a 1960s kitchen you couldn't destroy, not with kids, not with guests, not with gravity, it was melamine plates. These things were unbreakable, and every mom acted like that was their superpower. Drop it on the floor? Not a scratch. Throw it like a frisbee during a backyard BBQ? Still perfect. Use it as a drum while waiting for dinner? Completely fine. And the colors, oh, the colors. Pastels so bright you needed sunglasses. Turquoise, mustard, avocado green. Basically the entire palette of the 60s living room trapped inside your dinnerware. But let's not forget the downside. You couldn't microwave them, you couldn't put them in the dishwasher, and they somehow got hotter than the food itself. Touching one fresh out of the sink felt like grabbing the surface of the sun. Still, they were everywhere. Picnics, camping trips, school potlucks, and that one cupboard in every grandma's house labeled, "Don't use these, they're for company." Today, melamine has been replaced by glass, ceramic, and a dozen eco-friendly options, but nothing has matched its legendary durability. If humans ever colonize Mars, I'm convinced we'll find a stack of melamine plates already waiting there. And speaking of things that lasted forever, the next item is something every 60s kid remembers hearing long before they smelled dinner. A sound so classic, you could identify it from 3 rooms away. Before food came in microwavable bags and easy-tear pouches, there was the electric can opener, the noisy little machine that ruled every 1960s kitchen counter like a tiny, humming dictator. You didn't just open a can, you committed to a ceremony. You lifted the lid, locked the can in place, and then that glorious grinding sound kicked in. The official soundtrack of 1960s dinner prep. And here's the thing. People love this gadget like it was high-end technology. Show it to someone today and they think it was a medieval torture device. But back then, it was practically a spaceship. Of course, nothing ever lined up right on the first try. You'd miss the blade, the can would slip, and beans would do a full escape attempt across the counter. If you didn't hear at least one frustrated sigh in the process, were you even in a real 60s kitchen? And let's be honest, half of them had mysterious food gunk stuck in the gears from meals no one remembered cooking. Spaghetti night from 1963? Who knows? But we adored these machines because they meant one thing. You were minutes away from eating something warm, hearty, and probably packed with enough sodium to fuel a small army. Now that electric can openers have been replaced by instant meals and pull-tab lids, their loud, clunky charm feels like a lost ritual. And speaking of lost rituals, the next kitchen relic didn't just sit on the counter. It perfumed the entire house with the unmistakable smell of brewed nostalgia. If you grew up in a 1960s home, you didn't wake up to an alarm clock. You woke up to a soundtrack. Not birds, not sunlight, but that unmistakable blip, blip, blip of the percolator working its magic on the kitchen counter. And the smell. Forget fancy coffee shops. This was real coffee. The kind strong enough to wake the neighbors and maybe revive a ghost or two. Percolators weren't just coffee makers. They were family members. They sat proudly on the stove or counter, chrome shining, looking like miniature robots whose only mission was to fuel America. And they did it well. But they required something people today no longer possess: patience. You had to wait for the water to heat, wait for the bubbles to rise, wait for the drip, drip, drip of dark roast glory. Modern coffee makers? Push button. Done. Zero soul, zero drama, zero chance of accidentally creating coffee so strong it could dissolve a spoon. And remember how your mom or dad would lift the lid mid-brew to check the color? A dangerous move. A brave move. A move that guaranteed a hot steam facial you did not ask for. Sure, today we have pods, apps, drive-thrus, and espresso foam art. But none of it feels like that percolator moment, when the whole house smelt like energy, warmth, and maybe just a little bit of don't bother dad before his first cup. Now, if you think the percolator process was slow, wait until you see what the next 1960s kitchen superstar required. Because this next item didn't just take time, it stole entire afternoons. But oh, the results. Before slow cookers came with timers, apps, and automatic shutoff, there was the Dutch oven. The heavy, clunky, forever loyal cot that could outlive every appliance in the kitchen and probably survive a minor nuclear event. Calling it a kitchen item almost feels disrespectful. This thing was a commitment, a relationship, a lifelong partnership between a cook and 15 pounds of solid metal. You didn't casually move a Dutch oven. You prepared for it. You squared your shoulders, tightened your grip, and prayed you didn't drop it on your toes. But oh, once something went inside, magic. Pure, slow-cooked, melt-in-your-mouth magic. Sunday pot roast? Dutch oven. Grandma's famous stew? Dutch oven. Chili so thick your spoon stood upright like a flagpole? Dutch oven. It turned cheap cuts into tender masterpieces and made the whole house smell like comfort, family, and hours of anticipation. Because this wasn't fast food or even medium speed food. It was take your time because good things are worth it food. Today, people toss ingredients into a crock pot, hit a button, and walk away. But the Dutch oven demanded you check it, stir it, lift the lid just a peek, even though every peek released 3 hours of heat and flavor. It was a cooking partnership built on patience and mild regret. And when you finally served the dish, everyone thanked you like you had just returned from hunting it yourself. Sure, we have fancy gadgets, programmable cookers, and set it and forget it everything now. But the Dutch oven was the soul of the 60s kitchen. Heavy, humble, dependable, and always full of something good. If these old kitchen relics brought back even one good memory, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel was made for. So don't just watch and disappear. Hit that subscribe button and come along as we uncover even more forgotten treasures of American life. We've got plenty of nostalgia cooking, and I'd hate for you to miss the next serving.